Welcome to Wrinkle Wisdom. We get our first comedian and newfound tattoo artist, Ben Grelle from Austin, Texas. We got introduced to Ben on the KillTony podcast, and I was lucky enough where I started watching that podcast maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and it's kind of been my jump start to the week. Every Monday night I stream in, and it kind of starts the week off with breaking up the stress of life and finding the diverse, I guess I would say, content that's on there, or quality comedic content. And the way the show's set up is just so great. It's about taking a risk, and it's about, overcoming your fear and exposing, just who you are. And I was going to start off with asking Ben, what was that experience like?
Well, I got to Austin on May 17th, and I started checking out the KillTony situation. I would go to it's called Poor Choices. It's a bar across the street from the Comedy Mothership. And there would be 200 comedians, 200 plus comedians. The night I actually got on, there were 240 comedians that signed up. Because Tony even said it. He goes, you just pissed off 239 comedians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they picked you. But they were all telling me, I've been signing up for 3 years. I've been signing up for 2 years or 6 months, and we still haven't got picked. And I actually hadn't been on stage in at least 14 years. I stopped doing stand-up around 2010, and I was focusing on my painting and my art career. And then I decided to get back into comedy, and I happened to be in Boston for 20 months. I expected to go back for 1 month, but I ended up getting stuck there for 20 months. And Boston's not my favorite place because I don't like snow and the cold and all that. But that's where I grew up, and that's where my family is. But I was going back to L.A., and my good friend Brian Holtzman, who was a regular at the Comedy Store forever, and now he's a regular at Rogan's Club, the Mothership. And he said, forget L.A. COVID kind of screwed things up there. A lot of places shut down. He says, come to Austin. Go to Austin, because he lives both in California and Austin. And I'm like, Austin, Texas? I'm going, yeah, okay. Rogan's Club is there. And he said, yeah, there's a big comedy boom going on there. You can get on stage 7 nights a week and do, open mics. In L.A., it was getting messed up because, they had these bringer shows where you had to bring 5 audience members in order to get a good spot. If you didn't bring anybody with you, you got on late at night when there was nobody left in the club. So you're performing to a few drunk people. But anyway, I did go to Austin. And like I said, I hadn't been on stage in a long time. But I figured I'll start signing up now, and maybe by November or Christmas time, I'll get picked.
Yeah, playing your odds.
Yeah, and what were the chances they're going to call me? And to my amazement, like the third week I signed up, they called my name.
Yeah.
And everyone's going, that's you, Grelle, that's you. And I'm like, holy shit. I started, thinking, like, I haven't been on stage in so long. There's like 1 million people watching. And I even told the lady, I was hesitant. I said, I don't think I'm ready. And she says, okay, well, I had a backup name. And the other comics are like, no, man, you got to go. What, are you crazy? May not be called for another 3 years like us.
Right.
And I'm like, holy shit. I says, and they're like, you can do a minute. You were on the road for like 12, 14 years, right? I said, yeah, you can do a minute. So I went, and they bring you in the back alley into the back door, and you go and you're backstage there. And I don't know if they were producers or what their actual job title was, but they were backstage, and they take everything out of your pockets.
Right.
I don't know why, but yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't have my switchblade with me because I went to the open mic, and they did take my knife away that night, and it took me like 3 weeks to get the knife back. One of the security guards saw me on the sidewalk, and he goes, hey, this is your knife. I've been carrying it around for 3 weeks. I'm like, holy shit, I didn't think I'd see that again.
And so people that haven't seen the KillTony podcast or understand, what they do there is it's a live stream podcast where they have a bucket, and every person puts their name in the bucket. So the odds of you being pulled out, are 1 out of 240 that night. Yeah. And it's all anticipation. I mean, he doesn't know who he's pulling out, nothing. Right. It's just luck of the draw.
Yeah,
on both sides of it.
And it really is, because I even asked Holtzman, my friend, I said, hey, get me on KillTony. Like, I thought maybe he could, call Tony, hey, get my friend on. And he said, no, you can't do that. He says, somebody else tried to do that, and he couldn't do it. You got to actually go there and sign up, and they do put your name in it's a wine bucket. That's why they call it bucket pulls.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just the luck of the draw. And my luck, they called me after just 3 times. So.
Yeah. How did it feel when you were approaching that, coming through the curtains? What was going through your head?
I'll tell you, my heart was like really beating because I hadn't been on stage so long. I mean, I knew I could do a minute. I wasn't worried about that. And I had 3 or 4 jokes, which would consume the 60 seconds. But I was also concerned about the interview because the interview is just as important as the minute. And I even told the producers before I went on, I said, look, I don't want to be known as the junkie comedian or the heroin guy or whatever, but I did kick a 32-year heroin habit.
Yeah.
And when I said that, their eyes got huge, and they're like, oh, my God, that's great. They said, Rogan is out there tonight. Yeah. They have a panel. There's Tony and 2 other comedians usually, and they critique you or they give you accolades, depending. If you do good, they go, hey, that was good. We can see you actually have a set and you plan for it. But most of the people go up, they bomb, and they really tear you a new one. They really roast the hell out of you. Like, you suck. What the hell ever made you think you were funny? And one poor kid, when I first started watching it, he's going, well, my mom said I was funny and I should try to get on KillTony. And they're going, your mother's an asshole. And it's like, oh my God, anybody got a knife? So this kid goes slit his wrist out in the alley, and it's like, holy shit, I better not bomb. So I was concerned about that, even though I had done comedy for a long time. But yeah, it was a trip. So they said you gotta talk about being a heroin addict. That's a good story. They will love that. And I kind of offhandedly said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But I still wasn't going to do it. I was going to talk about being a movie extra and being in Rocky II and Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood movie. Yeah. I thought that would suffice as an interesting story because most people are interested in that. And they said, no, you got to talk about your heroin addiction and kicking a 32-year habit. And I said, okay. They said, no, say I promise. They made me say it. I said, what? They go, yeah, say I promise. I said, okay, I promise. And they said, okay, and if you go off the rails and start talking about something else, we're going to yank your mic,
Yeah, what's really cool about that is I imagine in the background, after running a podcast for, only 3 months here, but they're feeding Tony in the background.
Oh, yeah.
They're going through a back channel, and that's how intelligent that guy is. He's managing a crowd, an interview, a panel, and then he's managing the people that are about to come in, setting himself up.
Exactly.
I mean, he is sharp to be doing that.
Yeah, and I could hear Cam Patterson was on before me.
Yeah.
Because I actually had to run there because I didn't hear my name at first. And I didn't. She was going back to get another name, and the other comics going, that's you. And I started running, and she was like literally about 50 yards ahead of me, ready to go into the club again and get another name.
Yeah.
And all the comedians like, run. I felt like Forrest Gump, that run. And she heard them all chanting, run. And she turned around and she kind of motioned to me, is it you? And I said, yeah, I think so. Let me see the paper. And I looked and I said, yeah, it's me. So I was out of breath, and I even told him, I said, I need a few minutes to catch my breath. And they said, don't worry, Cam just went on, and I could hear him. And I knew who he was because I just started watching KillTony about a year before that.
Yeah.
But that kid, he said, first time I saw him, he goes, I'm not retarded, but I like rocks. And he actually pulled a rock out of his pocket. And I have rocks. If I see a nice rock, the last one I got was on the beach in Santa Barbara. I was in the sand, and I put my hand in the sand, and I pulled up a nice rock. It looked like a little flying saucer. It was round and
so I don't know if they do this down in Austin, Texas, but up here in Tri-Cities, people paint rocks and they hide them all over the city. Yeah. And you take pictures and find them. You should do that since you like to be an artist.
Yeah.
Down in Austin, that'd be cool. Yeah. Take them and paint little cool, they look like quotes or little figures and stuff, and then they hide them, and then they started a thing around where you post it on, social media, take a picture like, hey, I found this rock.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe
cool.
I'll start doing that around Austin.
Yeah.
Down by Lady Bird Lake.
Yeah.
Where Lady
It'd be
Bird
cool
Lake.
because then you can put your name at the bottom and it's like free marketing. I mean,
that's an idea.
Just an idea.
It's a good idea.
I try to have a few of those every once in a while. Yeah, I think when you came on, we don't need I think people should go watch that. Should watch your bits on KillTony. I think it was what attracted me to your story. And what I think is really cool about, what first hit me, Ben, when I saw you was that obviously you were funny and you're kind. Like, you can tell you're a kind person, even though you had all these other things going on in your life. I think it's easy to tell through your set that you're a kind individual. And then the fact that you're 73 years old, that's a beast of a move at that age, to be out there going up against a lot of these younger kids. And, that takes a lot of, I would say, courage or confidence or drive.
Yeah, they even commented on that. They said, you're 73, we can't believe. In that particular night, it was, 9:30 at night, and it was 105 degrees still.
Yeah.
It was still hot. And they said, we can't believe you're 73 years old and you're out there in 105-degree heat with 200, 25, 35-year-old guys, and you're still there trying to do it. And I told them, I said, well, this is my last chance. I don't have any plan B.
I want to talk. Yeah, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what really hit me, and just how people understand how you and I connected is, I have some of my social media pages, and I thought, I'm going to look up and see what he's doing. You fit the demographic of the Wrinkled Wisdom podcast. You have a very unique story. And, just so people understand, I mean, Ben, we can let him tell you his version of it, but I reached out to him and I posted a few things and I was like, hey, I DM'd you about, you fit the demographic of my podcast. And then I DM'd him and I think you said, like, I got your message.
Yes.
But it was like a week later and I just wrote him, a bit about how I interview people 70 and older, all walks of life, because I call it hacking the system, or I want to go back to like the tribal knowledge of the elders and, their life lessons, their hardships and their successes, and then push them down through social media and other platforms to get them to the younger generation so we can learn more about life that way and help navigate it. And, and I think your first response to me was something about, hey, I looked up your podcast and it's different than any other podcast. Yeah. And I think you said just a few sentences later, I think I'd like to do it because if I could help somebody with my story, that would mean the world to you.
That's what happened after I got on KillTony. I started getting all these messages and responses from drug addicts and alcoholics.
Yeah.
And they were saying, oh my God, you inspired me. One guy actually said, I'm not going to kill myself. He said, I was thinking about committing suicide. He said, but you're 73 years old. He was like 53. And he says, I can do it. If you can do it, I feel like I can do it. He said, you really helped me. And I was like, holy shit. Even my wife was like, you saved someone's life, indirectly.
Yeah.
And plus, when you texted me, I saw the logo and I saw that old lady with gray hair. And I thought you were an old lady. 75-year-old lady. And even though I'm 73, I can relate to younger people better than older people, Supposedly when you start using drugs, you start maturing. So I stopped maturing at 19 years old, and I've been clean for 17 years, so 19 and 17, so I'm right about your age.
I like that.
At least psychologically.
Yeah, that's probably why you and I get along so good, and you've got along so good with all my friends all weekend. We, I really think that touches about like who you are, and that like it hit me, with that when you said that, and I was like, yes, man, that's what we're doing. That's what we want to do. We want to help people in every different way, especially if we can help people in that way and get them out of addiction or anything like that. We all know somebody that suffered from addiction or lost their life to addiction in some way. And it's, even if you lose your life mentally or physically, it happens. And you're one of the ones that I wouldn't know if it's luck or however you call it, but you've been able to get there. And I love that you're ambitious enough to chase your dream still.
Yeah.
And I know on the first time you and I talked on the phone, I was talking to Ben on the phone and, I kind of told him what we do and why we do it. And he said, I have one shot.
Right.
And I'll never forget you saying that. And it hit me like, you do have one shot.
Yeah.
I've never met a 73-year-old that's still chasing their dream. Yeah. And that hit me really it hit me right pulled my heartstrings, man. So I thought, you know what, let's make this happen, and we'll fly you out here to Washington and sit you down in the podcast studio. And that's what my brain was doing, in about an instant, like that. And then I think after a few minutes, you just another thing that shows your character was a good friend of mine was in the air to Austin, Texas, right at that time. And, after a little bit of talking with Ben, he said to me, you said, "Is your friend a good guy?"
Yeah.
And Alex, yeah. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't keep bad people around me or something like that. And you instantly, that's why we got these sweet shirts. That's how I got
these shirts.
Yeah.
Alex hooked me up with a friend of his that does screen printing and embroidery.
Right. Here out of the Tri-Cities, but he can, we'll plug him real quick, but he can do anything. He can ship it to you. It's West Coast screen printing.
Yep.
And you can look him up online. We can get his info, but you can find him. He's out of Tri-Cities, Washington, and he does a great job. And he donated these to Ben because
he did.
We're trying to help Ben's dreams come true here.
These guys are blowing my mind. I can't believe what happened. I'm so glad I answered that your text.
Yeah, that's a hell of a catfish.
I thought it was an old lady. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I thought it was some old
yeah.
lady, and I'm thinking, how can I relate to this old lady? But that's good. It's exposure. I should respond. And then, I'm talking to you. I'm 37 years old. I'm not an old lady.
Right?
Holy shit.
Maybe that's my new tactic to get old people. I'll just post like old people pictures and I'll catfish them into the studio. But so we thought, well, we'll throw a comedy show together. And I talked to my team and I talked to my friends and they were all in. And it really shows that we need a sense of community to really help each other out, no matter what your story is, no matter if you used to be a druggie or whatever your story is. I don't care if you were the president. I don't care. Everybody deserves to have a community around them and the support. And,
it's like I have a whole team up here in Washington.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. Even my wife is like, I can't believe this is happening. You sure that's what's going on? What's going on up there? You coming home?
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot rifles today. Well, I thought you didn't like guns. No, we're shooting targets, not people.
Right.
Yeah, I'm doing a tattoo later on. I go, what? You never did a tattoo. I go, yeah, this kid wants me to tattoo one of my drawings on his ribs. Oh my God.
Right. It's all part of the story. That's what's so cool.
Yeah.
And one thing we wanted to do with Wrinkled Wisdom too is bucket list items, and that was one of your bucket list items, right?
Yeah. Back when I was in my 30s, I wanted to be a tattoo artist. And I had a friend that had a tattoo shop on Sunset Boulevard, and he liked my portfolio and my artwork, but the fact that I didn't have not one tattoo, he said, people won't trust you to do tattoos because you don't have any tattoos. And he said, let me give you a few tattoos, but I didn't want to get any tattoos because I had the whole AIDS thing I told you about.
Right.
I was going to get a tattoo in the 80s, and I was watching a news show while I was waiting at Tuttle's studio. Tuttle is a famous tattoo artist who tattooed the Grateful Dead and all those San Francisco bands. And I was watching the news while I was waiting for my turn to get tattooed. And they were saying on the news, it's predominantly gay people who are getting AIDS, and they think it's from intravenous drug use, needles and blood, And I'm looking at all these gay guys getting tattooed and all this blood, and they're wiping blood off, and they're using needles. And I'm going, holy shit, maybe I should think about this a little bit more.
Right.
I actually went up to the lady. I said, I think I'll come back next week and get the tattoo, cross my name off the list. And she's like, yeah, I've been watching the news too. I don't blame you, And
right.
So I put it off. I never did get a tattoo.
I want to go back on the story here a little bit. When Alex was so just so people, Alex Everett, he has Alex Everett tattoo in here, Tri-Cities. He was the one on the way, but the screen printing was done by West Coast. Yeah, I think it's Stevens his name. I got to make sure been a lot going on here, so I didn't want to get people to get the names mixed up. Yeah. But I
even got these I even got stickers.
Hopefully people can get some of those.
A few hundred stickers.
And so Ben right away was I was like, yeah, I think my buddy Alex is bummed he can't get into the mothership or something. It was sold out when he looked for tickets. And so Ben said, you give him my number and I'll hook him up and
Brian, my good friend Brian Holtzman is a regular at the mothership. He does 5 shows a week, 2 shows a night. So I knew I could call Brian and just tell him what's going on. So I told Alex, meet me in front of the mothership and don't worry about it. We'll get in. And we're in Mitzi's, the bar, which is inside the mothership. We're there like 10 minutes, and Brian walks in. He goes, what's going on? I said, yeah, these guys, they're helping me out. I'm doing a podcast. And not only that, now I'm doing a comedy gig besides the podcast. And Brian is a great supporter of mine.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, so what do you need? And he hooked us up. They put wristbands on us. They took our telephones. They take your telephones and put them in a little bag so you can't be, videotaping and all that. And it was the first time I actually sat in the audience. Every time I've gone there, Brian would bring me up to the balcony where the comedians hang out, and I would watch it from up there. But this time, they put us right in like the second row, which I would never go to a comedy club and want to sit near the stage because I didn't want the comedians to mess with me, right?
Yeah.
That they do that. But it was great, actually. It was me, my wife was there, Catherine, and Alex and his friend Hunter.
Yeah, that was really nice
then
of you.
Tony Hinchcliffe actually came out that night too, which was the added surprise because Alex was saying, hey, Tony Hinchcliffe, I can't believe I'm in here. Never mind.
Yeah, that was really cool of you. And I think that shows a lot about your character and obviously Brian's character it's nice to have people around.
And then Brian gave me the hats and
we got it over there. I should have said it here.
Yeah, I said, what is? I already have a mothership hat, and Beck goes, no, it's not for you. It's for your friends in Washington. I'm going, oh, great,
Yeah, well, we really appreciate that. I know.
He's a
I
great
was
guy.
going through. I had a little bit of FOMO going on when you guys were down there, and they take your phone, so I couldn't hear how it was going.
Yeah.
Just goes to show what it's like in these times. I was wondering if we could go back. I think we'll bring up that tattoo later at the end. We'll bring our media guy out here so he can sit here and visit with you for a minute.
Yeah,
for the
last
media
little bit. Guy is the guy I tattooed. Actually, Wayne.
And I got it. We got to give a shout out to Wayne because he has skin in the game now, and he helped Ben get a bucket list item.
My pleasure.
Yeah. We'll bring Wayne out and let you sit and visit with him and put him in front of the camera for the end. I wanted to go back. So on a more serious note, I was wondering if we could talk about when you started heroin. When you reflect back, have you ever analyzed why, or how, or?
Yeah, well, I had to go. I went through the Haight-Ashbury drug detox clinic about 9 times from 1982 to 1988 when I finally got clean. I got clean many times in between that, but it wouldn't stick. They had a 30-day program where you'd go in and they would, take urine from you and, see how much heroin you had in your system, I guess. And every day you would have to go and give urine, and they would make sure that you weren't using. And they would give you a little packet of pills to get you through the night. Sleeping pills, stuff for nausea, stuff for diarrhea, because all this stuff happens.
Because of the withdrawals.
Yeah, for withdrawals. Librium, Libritabs to kind of relax you because it's very anxiety provoking, even just psychologically. Waiting to start kicking, to start getting leg cramps and vomiting. It's a horrible, horrible experience. That's why you can't get clean because you don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, I'm going to get high today. I'll start tomorrow. Before you know it, 6 months goes by, and then 2 years, and then eventually, I used for 22 years, and then I got clean in 88. And I was good, and that's when I finally got on stage. I couldn't do stand-up being stoned. I would sign up for open mics at the Comedy Store. And I was going to the Comedy Store, the biggest club in the country. I should have been going to some little dinky club, down the street where nobody cared. But no, I had to go to the Comedy Store because I used to see that on Johnny Carson all the time.
Yeah.
This is Freddie Prinze. He plays at the Comedy Store down here. This is Jay Leno. They were popular at that time.
Right.
At the Comedy Store. So finally I'm in L.A. and it's like, oh, my God, there's the Comedy Store. The actual building was there. But, yeah, so I would go to those open mics, and it wasn't easy to get on the open mic. You had to go at 3 in the afternoon, sign up, and then you had to go back at 6 at night to see if they picked you, because there'd be like 60 comedians, and they would only pick maybe 20.
Yeah.
And ironically, I got picked every time I signed up. I got picked. And they would say, okay, you come back, you're on from 9 to 9:03. They only give you 3 minutes. And the next guy, 9:03 to 9:06, and 9:06 to 9:09. And I would go But I was high. Every morning I had to get up and I had to do some heroin just so I could start my day.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do so much that I was like wasted. I just did enough that I could function. And I didn't look like a heroin addict. You know, I took showers every day. I really didn't have a job because I was a drug dealer at the time. I was selling pot and coke. I was out of my mind looking back at it. I'm not advocating the use of drugs to anybody. I say this all the time. Just in case any young impressionable people are looking, oh, that's cool. It's not cool at all. You ruin your life. But anyway, I would go to these open mics, and the closer they would get to my name, I would start having an anxiety attack. I'd start sweating and like hyperventilating, and I would go up, and there'd be still 2 or 3 people before me, but I would cross my name out. I wouldn't even wait till it got to the person before me because they might call me. Then it's like, oh, yeah, I don't want to go up, you know. So I would cross my name out, and I would say, I'll do it tomorrow. Because at the Comedy Store, you could do it on Sunday and Monday.
Yeah.
And I would do it every Sunday and Monday.
Yeah.
And then I would go, the Laugh Factory didn't even exist then, but the Improv was there, and I would go to the Improv once in a while. But I did that literally for 10 years.
Yeah.
And finally, I got clean in 87, and I stayed clean for a whole
great
year.
87's a great year.
Yeah.
I was born that year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And a lot of my friends. Yeah.
So you were a baby, and I finally got my shit together. And I was clean for a year, and I took improv classes, and I was going to a Fort Mason improv class, and rumor had it that Robin Williams showed up at this place occasionally. And to my amazement, one Saturday was from 1 in the afternoon to 4 in the afternoon. This guy, Jim Crenna, used to run it. And he was with this group called The Committee. They were big in the maybe the late 60s or early 70s, or maybe the late 70s, I forget. It's kind of vague back then because I was always high. But so I went to that improv class, which got me on stage with other people, and not alone. I was there with other people, but it still got me on stage in front of people. So the fear of performing kind of went away.
Right.
And then after a whole year, I finally went to the Holy City Zoo. It's a little dinky club where, ironically, that's supposedly where Robin Williams did his first stand-up.
Oh, okay.
It was the Holy City Zoo. And it was in the Richmond district in San Francisco. I think it only had 20 seats, and then there were 10 bar stools. So the whole place could only sit 30 people.
Right.
So I'm thinking, okay, if I bomb, there's only 30 people that'll see me bomb. But I finally went there, and the very first night I got on is when I met Holtzman. I was in a Chinese restaurant, and he was sitting a few booths down, and I saw him there, and I'm eating, and I just visually, we made eye contact. We didn't say anything. I just said, okay, there's another guy eating there. And then I went to an aquarium shop a few doors down, and I'm looking through the tank, and
there's Brian Holtzman on the other
guy again,
looking past the guppy, and there he is.
Exactly. I remember it was zebrafish we were looking at, and zebrafish, they dart around. And I think we said something like, oh, you got an aquarium? I go, yeah, I got an aquarium. Yeah, those are zebrafish. Yeah, I got guppies. I had fancy guppies and all this stuff. And that was that. And then I go to the Holy City Zoo. I'm in there, and in walks this guy again, Brian Holtzman. I'm going, holy shit. So that was the first night we met.
Yeah.
And he, I told him, I said, yeah, I had stage fright for 10 years. And I don't know if he remembers any of this, but he was very encouraging. He said, there's nobody here, just go on.
Yeah.
Nobody cares if you bomb. So, and I did. And I actually did pretty well. They laughed at like 80% of my stuff.
Yeah, well, you're a funny guy. And if we could talk about Holtzman, I mean, I don't know him. I've never met him. But I have to say, just in this process with you, the fact that his comedy is not for everybody, but it's, but really, that's the beauty of comedy and acting, and even you behind the scenes. I got to give him a shout out for being so kind, and the fact that he sent us a hat. He signed a hat, never met us before, just because we were doing something with you.
Yeah,
not knowing the outcome, but he knew that there was opportunity for you and for us, and he had you mail that to me. Yeah. And those gestures show true character.
He appreciated that you were helping me.
Yeah, I just love that because
and he didn't even know me. I told him. I said he texted me about doing a podcast. Then I told him, he goes, "Oh, you're going to fly up to Washington?" I said, "No, he's flying me up and back." He's going, "Oh my God!" He goes, "That's unusual, You don't lose touch with this guy." And I said, "No, of course not."
Yeah, I just like that. I just like kind gestures
Yeah,
from people,
yeah,
especially.
he's a sweetheart.
So we appreciate that.
Which is the opposite of his act, because his act, his act, he cracked it. Since day one, I thought he was funny. Then he moved to L.A. while I was still in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him during the riots down there, and his mom happened to be there at some hotel. He said, "Yeah, they're burning the city down. My mother's in a hotel down the street. Like, get your ass down here." So I went down there, and I started hanging out with Brian again.
Good. When you were in your heroin addiction phase or a heroin habit, you met a lot of famous people. You were in movies.
Yeah.
You were doing this stuff. Did you ever connect that maybe part of your addiction was that I do this drug, it gives me the confidence or the energy or the personality, whatever it does, to put myself out there and meet these people? And like, did you ever think that was feeding your, like, what would you call it? Were they feeding each other? Like, were you like, what do they say that? Were you getting the dopamine from also meeting these celebrities and stuff like that too? Or maybe I'm not wording that right.
Yeah, I know. Once you're addicted, you don't have any choice. You got to get high, or else you're going to get violently ill.
I guess my question would be, do you think, obviously we're not advocating for drug use, but do you think I'm trying to figure out the psyche of it here. If you weren't on drugs during that time, would you have been as courageous or brave enough?
Oh, yeah.
You would have
I would have probably
been more successful. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because I was selling coke to the comedians rather than actually being a comedian.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people think, if I don't get drunk, I'm not going to be funny. I'm not going to have fun.
No,
if I don't do drugs, I'm not going to,
Yeah, no, it definitely hindered my success and my progression.
Is there a opportunity that you think that stands out to you that you missed or messed up because you were high?
Probably all of them. I probably would have.
I like that answer.
Socialized more. Because I was right there, like on Rocky II. I was right there. There was Burgess Meredith was 10 feet away from me, which in my generation, he was like a superstar.
Yeah.
He was on like the first Twilight Zones and everything. And Sylvester Stallone, he had already done Rocky I, and he won an Academy Award for that.
Yeah.
So it was like, and I was right there in the middle of it. I don't know if you remember, there was a TV show called Welcome Back, Kotter. It was John Travolta's first appearance on TV, and he played this character, Vinnie Barbarino. But that was my first actual background work, was being on that show.
Okay.
And I was wasted during the whole thing. And in the movie, you see me. I mean, and I have big dark circles around my eyes, and it was a basketball movie. I'm in the stands, like, fucked up.
Yeah.
But had I been not high, I probably would have, networked better and put myself out there more. Because a lot of, you don't want people to know you're high, so you kind of get in the background.
Yeah.
You don't want the spotlight on you, but then again, you do. I mean, here I am, wanting to be an actor and all that.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite experiences being a background actor?
Well, I had the most. I was involved more when I did some TV work. There was a show called Wolf, and Jack Scalia was the star of that show. He was like a Tom Selleck character. He even had the mustache, and it was
Can you bring up Wolf?
89, 1990, right around that time period. And the other TV show was called Midnight Caller. And in both of those, I was in them more. One of them, I was a limousine driver, and I actually had a line in it. They gave me a line, which never made it to the. Every time I got a better line, which would allow me to become a member of the Screen Actors Guild, it never made it. It always got, as they say, put on the editing room floor. And my line was, "Where to, boss?" I was like a limo driver for a mobster, and I had to turn around and say, "Where to, boss?" Andiamo to the airport.
I could see you doing that.
And I did. I said, "Hey, where to, boss?"
Is this what you're talking about, Ben?
Yes, that's it, exactly. Yep. And that's all in San Francisco. And I played a policeman in that. And ironically, we had real police cars there. And with every police car that they rented, the car got $300 a day. And me as a background actor, I got $100 a day. And I remember, like, the fucking car's making more money than me. But along with the car came a real police officer. So I was in the car with this cop, all day long for like 8, 12 hours a day. They were long days. They would go from morning when it got light until it got dark. And they would say, we're losing the light. We got to get these shots. We're losing the light. Then they could only do nighttime shots. But I'm sitting in this car with this guy, and his name was Ragsdale. And I remember that name because I associated with the Ragman's son, which was Burt Lancaster's dad was a ragman, and he wrote a book called The Ragman's Son. But so I remember that guy's name, and then I'm going like, holy shit, this guy busted me in the Tenderloin about 3 years ago for possession of heroin.
Yeah.
And I was going, this is weird, I was clean and sober at the time for about a year at that point. And I even asked him, I said, do you remember, people you arrested and all that? And he's like, no, I don't remember who was a victim, who was a witness, who was the perp. I said, no, because, you arrested me in the Tenderloin about 3 years ago. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, dude, And I go, no, I was a drug addict. It was no big deal. It wasn't the first time. But it was just ironic that here I was sitting with this guy in the cop car, and that arrested me. And I got to drive the cop car, and we actually did a scene where we handcuffed Lou Ferrigno, the guy that played the Hulk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the episode I was on was called Little Girl Lost. And the episode was about, he actually saved this girl from, I think, being molested by her dad or something like that. But they thought he kidnapped her, but in reality he didn't. And Lou Ferrigno had a speech impediment. He's deaf, so he talked kind of like he talked. But yeah, and he was he was in the movie with Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was in that a lot. Him and Arnold Schwarzenegger were lifting weights together, and I think it was actually came in second to something in the Olympics.
Oh, cool!
You never heard of Lou Ferrigno?
No, probably before my time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I'm so freaking old. Everything's before.
No, that's all right.
Time.
That's why we're hanging out with you, so we can learn about that stuff.
Yeah, Lou Ferrigno. Yeah. Wayne is like Jamie on Rogan's show.
Oh yeah, we're trying to get Wayne to pull up some stuff. Sorry, if you see me, I was trying to text Wayne back here. We need to chat. But I put some.
Hey, that's funny that you found Wolf on there.
I took some pics in the Dropbox. You can just put Dropbox up in the tab on the deal.
That sounds good. Sorry, my phone's on Do Not Disturb.
Oh yeah. And we're gonna have to get like some sign language in here, like if I scratch my nose or pick my ear, it means
look up what we're talking about. Yeah, that's good. There's a good one. I would know that.
Yeah.
Oh, here you go, guys. Got something for you here.
What do we got here? There we go.
Oh yeah.
Who's that guy?
Yeah, that's me. I'm yelling, "Kill him, Rocky! Kill him!" That was kind of cool because in between them setting up the camera, did I send you those pictures?
Yeah.
In between setting up actually, my son. I guess he got stills from the movie.
Oh yeah, I guess we can look right here. Yeah, can you look at the other one real quick? The other one you can.
Yeah, and I was actually like way back in the stands.
Yeah, that one is that you with the mustache?
Yeah, to the left.
Look at that
me.
stash, man!
Yeah, big boofy stash.
A big, just like my wife's.
Yeah, good old Italian.
She's a beautiful Italian girl. She's got the face of an angel.
That's
angel
pretty
with
cool.
A fucking mustache.
I think Sylvester Stallone. I think he bought a dog from somebody here, King Corso. I guess he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, and then Carl Withers, the other guy that he fought, he actually used to play for the Detroit Lions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was cool because we were right there ringside.
Yeah.
Before that, I was way back in the stands, and you would have never seen me. I was so far back that I was ready to go home. I wasn't going to even go anymore because I had to get up like at 6 a.m. to be there.
Yeah, you can close that out. I might send you some more as we go through this. So when you were doing all this extra work, people knew that you were dealing drugs. So a lot of the people in Hollywood were.
Yeah, well, I was selling coke to a lot of the extras.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a few the sound man and grips and stuff like that.
So they like to have you around and for.
Some of them, they would see me again and they, hey, you got any, I was like, yeah, and I'd meet them, in the hallway or whatever. And
right.
I was selling like grams. It's not like I was a big time dealer.
Right.
I was a small time dealer. But that's what I was doing. But see, even then, and I had to get high every morning before I went there. I had to shoot some heroin so I could be normal. I wouldn't be sick. But once you get into it, you know how much to do. Okay, I just got to do enough so I can make it through the day and not look high and not be, nodding out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, I would do more, and I would be like, okay, I like people have a beer after work.
Right.
As I would do more, and I'd be all fucked up.
Yeah. I think it's really humble of you to, come out here and accept the humility of telling your story and the pitfalls. And
it does help people because there are people right now probably will be watching this that are in that position.
Yeah.
Thinking, how can I ever get out of this shithole that I'm in, And it's like, wow, this guy did it, and he was bad. I was bad,
Yeah.
To just go that long. And I lived. A lot of people I knew died.
Right.
They overdosed and, yeah.
I like that you understand that you understand how lucky you are to have made it through in the way you did, and that now it makes you wonder, what's out in the universe, like getting through that. And now it's like, you know what? Why am I here? Well, I might as well at least help people.
Yeah. Well, I think of that. I'm not a religious fanatic. I'm a recovered Catholic. We're Italian, so you know how that goes. But I figure, God had a plan for me. Maybe this is it. Like just recently, that one guy that said I was going to commit suicide, I was going to kill myself.
Yeah.
But after I saw you on KillTony, it's like, holy shit, if this guy could do it, I could do it.
Yeah, I think so. Even me just spending the time with you, you've been here for a few nights. It feels like years we've known each other, just the type of person you are. And just I've learned so much from you already, and I just can't wait to share. And even, there's the little things that, with raising kids and stuff like that, like your information that you share with us is so, you do it in such a light manner, but you do it with intent. And it'll give me, and you're, very sweet to my, the kids, and you're very kind, and you want them to live good. And I know that just already you being here, personally, I appreciate it because it will help me be a better father. So I was trying to say better and father at the same time, but a better father. And it'll help me, help kids and be like, hey, before you get to this point, remember Ben, he was up here to help people, and this is his story. So I really appreciate that. And I know people that watch this, they use some of the things that we talk about on this podcast to talk to their kids with perspective. I've had people tell me that. So I know that you'll help people, and it'll continue to help people.
That's great. It makes me feel good. You know what I mean? It really, good. It touches my heart to think that I'm helping anybody, because I don't see myself like that. For a long time, I was ashamed to even talk about any of this stuff. I would never openly talk about it, and even just my family and stuff. Don't talk about drugs. Don't mention drugs. Don't embarrass us.
But who? It's not embarrassing at all. I don't like that perspective. I'm sure you have a great family and they love you.
I don't see it like that at all.
Yeah, I love that. It's your story, and that's why we're here to have you share it. Going back to you want to talk about faith, or we can obviously continually talk about that, and everybody knows that watches these episodes continuously. But you and I talked about that today over breakfast and coffee, and we talked about how you even thought I was an older lady, so I catfished you really well, got you to my house, and we didn't kill you, but we.
That's what my wife said. Who are these people? Where are you going? What do you mean? You going in the woods with guns? What if they kill you and chop you up? Oh, shit.
And just the fact, you talk about the universe or whatever's going on to okay, but you gave me your number, I called you, you expected an old lady, you answer, but, something told you to do that, or, and it's like, okay, it could be fate or whatever, so I promised you this morning that I would tell you this story. And I don't think a lot of people don't know this story in my life, but you want to talk about the universe being wild. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. So just so people understand this story, it started when I was young. So my family's from a town of 400 people. There's not very many there. It's in South Central Washington. So there's not very many people there, middle of nowhere. And my mom, so I have 5 siblings. There's my 2 older brother and sister. They're full.
Right.
And then I was by myself. My mom was married to their dad, married to my dad. And then, the story with my dad was homosexual, and I think he
Right.
was. So I always have this weird thing where I tell people like, if it was cool, if it was okay to be gay back then, I don't know if I ever would have existed. I still think about that, how lucky I am in reality to be here. Obviously I wouldn't have known if I was never here, but still. Right. And then there's my younger 3 siblings, and then that's my stepdad's kids.
Right.
And when we were young, like I saw my real dad very rarely, and then my older brother and sister, they never saw their dad or anything. He was never a part of their life. And my stepdad had, married my mom, and they'd been married for, gosh, I got to think here, probably like 4 or 5 years, and he got a job down in Florida. And the route we took to Florida was, we took like a special route, and it was for him to finish the 50 states. And I'd see, if I'm 7 at that time, he probably was a little over 30. He was probably 31. And, he finished the 50 states. Well, I remember when I was young, I was like, I want to finish the 50 states. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And really cool. And so we'd moved to Florida, and then my stepdad's parents lived up in Delaware. So we would go up and down the coast. And so we started hitting these states, and we'd do some stuff. And then, fast forward quite a few years, we'd made a trip back. We'd moved back to Washington, and then we went a different route. We went a different route back home. So I'd hit a bunch of states that way. And we'd normally do national parks and kind of cool things like that. And then I didn't travel very much for a while until I was in high school. I went down to California, so I got to knock that one off the list. And then, then I got into college, and then I had my daughter, and I was like, well, I need to start making money. So I dropped out of college, and I got into wind energy, and I travel around building wind turbines all over the country. And so over the next, being in wind for as long as I got to travel all over the country. And I ended up finishing the Continental 48 before I was 25. And and this is like not just flying in. This is going around, sitting down at a bar, having a beer with a local resident, and trying to learn the culture. And I loved people. So I finished the Continental 48 before I was 25. And then a few years later, I was like, I'm going to finish the 50 states before I'm 30. I was like, I can do it. And so like a few years later, I was tired of wind energy. Turbines were catching on fire. And I was like, this is a job that only gets harder. And people are like, you should do sales. So I got into this sales where we would do home energy efficiency packages, where we would, insulate with like MLI in your attic and then your crawl space. And if you did it in the thing, it said you could go to Alaska. And I was like, I got to do Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't I give it a shot? So I hounded the guy, and I got into that job, and I did fairly well at it. And the way we would market is you would send out mailers, right? They would pick a demographic, send out mailers, then you'd get invited to a dinner, and then they would give you a presentation at the restaurant or whatever. And then I would go run the bid. You could give them a card back with your name and your address and your phone number, and then a time for the appointment.
Yeah.
And so, it's a game of chance that, you're playing obviously with marketing. And so I did well. I get to go up to Alaska, and we're like on the 3rd or 4th day there. We did Anchorage the first few days, and then the next day we went over to Wasilla, Alaska. And so at this time, I'm probably 28 years old. I can't remember exactly. So I did 49. The 49th state was my 49th state. And so I'm excited just to be there and doing this and running around trying to make money. And we went to Wasilla, Alaska, and it was the second day in Wasilla, Alaska. So I was already running bids from the first dinner. And so I'd been out running around, and then they did a lunch that day. And then I get a picture of a card, and it says, Jim Green, whatever, Wasilla, Alaska. I'm like, okay, just look at it real quick. And I punch it in. I'm like, yeah, I can make it there. I got time. So I go over to this guy's house, and I knock on the door. Dogs start going wild. And he had one of those doors where it has the vertical window next to the door.
Yep.
And they were healer dogs that came up and ran. I could see them, a blue and a red healer. And they were going nuts. And I was like, hey, there's healer dogs, cattle dogs out here in the middle of the woods in Alaska. I was like, that's kind of funny. So the guy comes to the door, and he introduces him. He's like, hey, I'm Jim. I'm like, hey, Jim, I'm David. Nice to meet you. He's like, hey, I heard you wanted a bid. And, and he starts talking, real friendly guy. And he starts talking. He's like, yeah, I know this stuff works because I know technology. I know how, it reflects heat, the certain energy waves of heat, it reflects out So he's like, yeah, I know that because it's the same type of stuff they use in car engine cabins, and they put it above the transmission to keep the heat from coming into the cabin of your car. And so I'm like, oh yeah, where do you work? Or, what do you do? And he's talking. He's like, I work at the VA center, and I drive an hour and a half to work every day. I work 4 days a week. I had today off because I was, he had to help his wife with something. And so he's just chatting it up. So I go up into his attic, and then I use like a laser measure, and I measure the attic, and then we come down out of the attic, and we're just visiting. And then then we go down into your crawl space. And in Alaska, the crawl spaces are deep. Let's say like 4 feet deep. Let's say this one was maybe a little bit more. And it's because they want to keep the ground they have like permafrost is really cold. So they want to keep the pipes away from the ground. And then they don't insulate the ground because they want the heat from the house to go down into it. So it doesn't freeze the pipes. So in Alaska, we would insulate the walls of the foundation, and then we would do the floor to reflect the heat back up into the house.
They didn't have cellars or basements like here?
This house didn't. Maybe they do at some, but they would store stuff in there too, a lot of people in the winter, or just in general. So, I'm sitting, crouched down, like you can picture me crouched down like a catcher, and he's, from me to you. And he asked me, I'm from me to you, and we'll say in catcher's position, lights on, and I'm looking at him face to face because it's very tight quarters. And he's like, "How would you do it?" And I was like, before I'd answer that, I was like, because I'm not a salesman really, I do it off of honesty. And I was like, I'd have to tell you where I probably come from or the type of life I've lived, for you to respect my answer. And I said, I grew up in a small town. My family had a farm and a logging company. And my grandparents always kind of said, the way you treat your stuff is like, it's a sign of respect to other people and yourself. That's what I took out of it. Like we would always have to dress nice. Even if we went to lunch in the town that we lived in, right? My grandma, if we, in the middle of work, my grandpa would like to take her to lunch. Sometimes it was really fun. But we'd go wash up, we go wash up. Yeah. And because you're going into somebody's business, you are an advocate for their business, and you should be respectful and look nice. And he's like, yeah, I kind of lived in the same type of area. And I'm like, or environment. I'm like, oh, really? I was like, where at? And he's like, do you know the Yakima, Washington area? And I'm like, yeah. And I looked at him. I'm like, I'm from Glenwood, which is it's across Mount Adams from Glenwood. And he looks at me, man, it's going to make me emotional. He looks at me and he says, I'm from Glenwood. And
you're both from the same town?
I pictured it. I looked at his card.
Yeah.
His name was Jim Green.
Yeah.
My older brother, who's 7 years older.
Yeah.
His birth name is James Green.
Was he your brother?
He was my brother and sister's dad.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Whoa.
Face to face in a crawl space in Alaska, all because I made this decision when I was 7 years old that I wanted to finish the 50 states.
What are the chances of that happening?
Yeah. It's weird because I still get really my arms kind of went numb, and I swear I could see the blood leave his face.
Wow.
And a tear rolled down his face. I pointed at him just like this. I was like, "You're my brother and sister's dad."
Wow.
Yeah, and what's wild
that is amazing.
Yeah, you want to talk about the universe? I would always say my last name because I'm really proud of my grandparents and my family. I would almost always say my last name when I introduced myself.
Right.
For some reason, I didn't. And I always believed that was whatever was going on in the universe was to make that moment a story and impactful to people. Yeah. And I lost it, man. And he talked like my brother. Him and my brother talk the same. He kind of looks like him. Very nice. And then there's a lot more to the story, but this podcast is about you. But I promised you I would tell you that story.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I think it's important for people to understand.
Me that's a trip.
Oh yeah, it changed my life. It changed my life. Yeah. I thought you never know what's around the corner.
What are the chances of that happening?
In a crawl space.
Yeah.
That is at his home in Alaska. Wow. You have to think of all the things that had to come together for that between, however much life.
Just to get there from here all the way to Alaska. Then you're in this guy's house.
Yeah.
And then besides that, it's even deeper, even a little crawl space right next to each other.
Very intimate face to face. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's still, that story hits me, and it's hit a lot of people over the years.
That is a trip.
Yeah. But yeah, we wanted to talk about that because you
Yeah.
and I kind of have a very similar belief about faith and the universe and
Exactly.
and how there's something out there helping
Yeah.
us out.
Yeah, so the universe put you guys together like that.
Yeah. Just like it put, this whole team together and what
Yeah,
we're doing here.
Exactly. That is a trip. That's a good story.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
It is a great story.
Yeah, I'll be telling somebody that story.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
this guy I know, you won't believe this, but shit.
Yeah, if they ever,
Wow.
if they want to hear it, and it gives you a lot of humility that you don't prejudge anybody because you don't know the truth of the story.
Yeah.
You don't know. So I learned a lot about him, and so I give a lot of people grace because of that experience because we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know their story or what happened or how he ended up, not talking to my brother and sister for, at that time, my brother was probably 35. So it'd been 30 something years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyways,
Have you tell this story to people?
I tried to, I don't, if
Do
I
you
get
get
the chance,
emotional every time you tell it?
every time it gives me, it makes, it's,
I could see why. That's heavy.
yeah.
Yeah, what a trip.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So thanks for letting me say that. Cause I think it's,
Wow.
I feel like that's maybe with the situation with you of like Alex flying down there, you meeting up with him, you and him getting along. And then one of your bucket list items just happens to be giving a tattoo and Alex happens to be have
tattoo
a
artist.
nice studio.
Yeah.
And, I talked to Alex and I'm like, I talked to my media guy. My media guy's like, I would love to do that, for him.
Yeah.
Cause that's why we do this.
Well, actually, do you remember driving? We were driving to do an interview last weekend, and Alex, you mentioned that he was visiting with Alex, and he's a tattoo artist, and we just rode for a while, and then I go, "Oh my God, wait a second!"
Yeah, yeah.
And I go, "You can say no to this idea.
Yeah.
Everybody can say no, but wouldn't it be cool if Ben gave me a tattoo?"
Yeah.
And that's something I normally don't do, but I felt like I had to do it for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So that was your idea.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah, I assumed it was, but then I'm thinking, did these guys talk him into doing this?
Right? Yeah.
I talked them into doing it.
Yeah.
it was-
Wow.
But
Hey,
it's just one of those neat things where people, it takes a certain type of person to put all those things together, and that's why we wanted to do that for you. And we'll have a lot of content out about that.
yeah.
And that was
That was a great experience, seriously.
and it's cool that it's your own piece of art.
Yeah, besides that, that's what my wife was saying.
Yeah.
And it's your thing. She's been looking at that thing for 25 years.
Yeah. And so there'll be a piece of you on Wayne for
That's what I said. He's
a
stuck
lot
with me
longer
for the
than
rest of his life now.
yeah.
I'm only going to be around another 27 years, then I'm out of here.
Can we hey, while we're on that subject, can we talk about that? Because
The psychic?
yeah, and then
Yeah.
you talk. I don't know if you're okay with going into the details about when you had hepatitis C. Are you
Yeah.
okay with talking about?
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So can we talk about that, the psychic, and the age you were, and
Yep. I was 50 years old at the time, and my mother-in-law, actually my father-in-law, Catherine's dad, he got pancreatic cancer, and we wanted to go to Key West for Christmas, but he died before that next Christmas came. The Christmas we were there, that's when he found out he had pancreatic cancer, and they gave him 3 months to live. And that was December. And by March, right around March 1st, he passed away. So they said 3 months, and that's exactly how long he lasted. But then the following Christmas, my mother-in-law ran into some money, I think with the stock market or something. And she said, I'm going to take us all to Key West for Christmas. We're going to have Christmas in Key West. And while we were there, she somehow heard about this woman, Dorothea Delgado. And she's still around. She still does it. And she was Ronald and Nancy Reagan's personal psychic.
Oh, wow.
Supposedly, before he made any decisions, he would helicopter her up from Key West to the White House, and she would give him a reading. And because she didn't travel, and you had to go to her house to get the reading. So we're in Key West at her house, and my mother-in-law gave us each as a Christmas gift a reading, and it was like $500 per reading for an hour. Mm-hmm. And the lady was right on. She described my parents, and she says, your parents are watching you, down there. And she described one of my best friends, my friend Jack, who overdosed just like a year before that. He overdosed on heroin. And she said, yeah, there's this guy, he has your build and stuff. He's kind of darker, he has black hair. And he's standing there with a black German Shepherd. And I'm going, oh my God, that's Jack's dog, King. He had a black German Shepherd named King. And I said, yeah, it's my friend Jack. And I'm thinking, wow, this lady is like amazing that she knew that.
And this is before somebody could just stalk your Facebook profile or MySpace profile and figure your life out. Yeah.
No, this was like 2005, right around then. I don't even think I had Facebook back then. And so, I believed everything she was saying. I was like, this is crazy. And just as I was leaving, it's like an afterthought. She goes, oh, yeah, by the way, you're going to live to be a centurion. And I stopped. I'm going, what do you mean? I'm going to live to be 100? She said, yeah. And she's like, I got another client, you're always up, basically. I went, well, wait a minute. I said, I believed everything you said. You really had me there for a while. Because I wasn't even sure if I believed in psychics when I went there. I said, you really had me for a while. I said, but, I told you I was a heroin addict. And I have hepatitis C. I've had it since I was 19, and now I'm 50 years old. And my doctor told me, he says, your liver's messed up. He says, but your liver's like this big, and about half of it is messed up. And I said, I doubt I'm going to live another 50 years, because I was 50 at the time. I doubt I'm going to live another 50 years, because it's an incurable liver disease.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, I wouldn't worry about that. And I'm thinking like, oh, it's easy for you to say you don't have hepatitis C.
Right.
And ironically, I don't remember exactly when it was, but a few years later, they came out with a cure for hepatitis C.
Yeah.
And I got on the cure. I had to take one pill every day for 90 days. And they said, take this pill every day for 90 days. And I couldn't get it through Medicare or anything. I tried a few different ways. My doctor said, try these avenues and you're going to get turned down. He said, but after you go through all these hoops, the drug company will give it to you. It was a $101,000 program.
Wow.
And after I did all that, one day FedEx came and they had a big jar of 90 pills. And I opened the box and there it was. And it said, take one pill every day for 90 days. Then wait 90 days and go get your blood tested.
Yeah.
And it should be out of your system. And it worked. I took them for 90 days and I waited another 3 months. Went and got my blood test, and they said, you don't have hepatitis C anymore.
Yeah.
And that lady flashed in my mind. I'm going, holy shit.
Yeah.
Dorothea Delgado, she knew.
Oh, isn't that something?
Yeah, and I don't have hepatitis C anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have any pain in my side or anything, because I used to get pain in my side to remind me, And it's like, because you were damn junkie, It's like, it's what you get,
Yeah. I always think about that with, like, the reckless behavior and stuff like that, with my real dad having HIV and then ending up with leukemia. I always thought, like this reckless, like, I don't know what people believe or whatever. Like, you want to talk about the universe. It's like, there's things like that out there, like diseases and things that tend to, they show up in reckless behavior. That's how you get them.
If I hadn't been, you got it at that time. You got it from sharing needles.
Yeah,
because needles were hard to come by.
Yeah,
it was illegal to possess a hypodermic needle if you didn't have diabetes or something.
Right.
And there was a felony. I got busted in San Francisco more times for possession of a hypodermic needle than actually for heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, when you would get a needle, you would get it and stash it in your stash. And whenever you got high, you had to go get your needle. And you'd be, a lot of times, with your friends. All my friends were junkies. All of us that grew up together, we all did it at the same time. I was in a band. I was a drummer in a band. And like I told you earlier, all our idols were heroin addicts.
Yeah.
The Beatles in 1969, they were all junkies.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones were all heroin addicts. Keith Richards was like famous for his drug addiction. Jimi Hendrix died of a heroin overdose. Janis Joplin.
Is Ozzy Osbourne? Wasn't he on drugs?
I was never into Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. He just never did it for me. But all these, Lou Reed, I loved the Velvet Underground, and he actually wrote a song called Heroin.
You're right.
It's all about heroin. And Chet Baker, famous trumpet player, he overdosed and fell off the balcony in France, and he died.
Right.
But
what kind of, when you were doing this, going in through, drug deals and things like that, going into drug houses, what were some crazy, like, experiences or people that you ran into? Like, what were the type of people?
Well, it depended. In Massachusetts, in Boston, when I first started doing it, the Puerto Ricans ran sold heroin. So you had to go to the Puerto Rican neighborhoods, and that's how I speak Spanish. It was out of necessity.
Oh.
You know, ¿Dónde está the heroína? You know, and where's the heroin? You know, who's got the good heroin? And so I was hanging around with Spanish people a lot, you know, Puerto Ricans. And, you know, you take your life into your hands. You go into these apartment buildings, and, you know, they'd have a gun on the table or whatever. So this guy, you know, obviously I had money on me because I wanted to buy heroin.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to go every day, so I would try to buy as much as I could at that one trip. So I'd have $400 or $500 on me. This guy could have easily shot me, you know, and put me out in the alley with the trash cans and kept the money. But it never happened. For whatever reason, I would go in, and I got along with them all.
Yeah.
So I always got back to the car because my friend would say, like, you know, I hope you come back, you know, because half of them were afraid to even go in.
What's that? Okay. What? When you met some really bad people in one of these drug houses, could you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. You mean Richie? My
Richie.
good friend Richie. Yeah.
That's a joke, everybody.
That's become my legacy. Yeah. Yeah. I used to go. This was in San Francisco. And it was around 1985, because then 3 years later is when I finally got clean in 88 for the first time. But yeah, I used to work at a hotel. I was a room service waiter. I would work from 5:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night. And I'd make about $150. It was good money.
Yeah.
But I had to, you know, I would end up staying awake all night because I couldn't get up at 5:30. So instead I would just be doing coke all night and then go to work, take a shower and go to work. And I didn't look like a heroin addict. I never really did. I always took showers, and I always looked clean cut, and I always went to work because I had to go to work to get the money. Especially once I stopped dealing drugs, because I ended up owing these Italians from New York like $80,000.
Oh, Jesus!
So that's when I moved to San Francisco, and my connection in Santa Barbara, who used to front me coke all the time. He got busted. So once he got busted, my source dried up. So now it's like I actually had to get a job to support my habit. And that's like when it really dawned on me that, shit, I'm a heroin addict. Because before I always had money. I actually had 80 grand in a shoebox at one time. So I'm in San Francisco, and I would get off work at 10:30 in the morning, and the hotels were right near the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin is where all the prostitutes and drug addicts live and hang out. It's all these low-income hotels, and a lot of these people lived in hotels. Just one room, that was it. That was where they lived. And the bathroom was a community bathroom. Each floor had one bathroom, and there'd be like 20 apartments on that one floor. So I would go to this guy's name was Buster, and he lived in the Cecil Hotel, a rundown hotel. No decent person would go there and get a room. So I would be in his room, and while I was in there, I'd be in there for an hour or sometimes 2 hours. I liked the guy. We got along good.
Yeah.
And he was a nice guy. He was a heroin dealer, but still, I got along well with him, a black dude. And I'd be in there, and while I'm in there, sometimes maybe 15, 20 people would come in a 2-hour period. They'd knock on the door. They'd come in, and they wanted to get high right there and then. And some of them, their nose was running. They were in the beginning stages of withdrawal. I got to get high here. And he would charge them $2 to get high in his room.
Yeah.
So he would make money. So they'd come in, they'd give him the $2, they'd cook up their heroin in the spoon, draw it up, and they'd get high. And this one guy would come in, he lived across the hall, and his name was Richie. That's what Buster introduced. Oh, this is my friend Richie, he lives across the hall. So Richie would get high, and he'd hang out there for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then he'd go back to his room. And when he would go back to his room, Buster would say, "That guy is weird, man. He's a Satan worshiper. He's nuts. He got a pentagram painted on the floor in his bedroom. It's under the carpet. He showed it to me. I'm like, holy shit. And my girlfriend at the time, actually, she got the EBGBs from him. She would say, I don't want to go up there. That guy might be up there. He weirds me out. She'd say, I'm going to wait in the lobby. Because she would meet me at the Bristol Hotel when I got off work. She would take the subway and meet me there. Not all the time, but many times. And then we'd be high, and we'd go around San Francisco, and it'd be Christmas time, and we'd go to Macy's and all that, and go I knew all the hotels, so I can go into the hotels, into the employee cafeteria, and we'd go get food and eat, because I worked there. And I knew the security guards, and half the security guards were heroin addicts that worked there. The cable guy was a junkie, you know, so I get free rides up and down on the cable cars. We all knew each other. I see him at Buster's, you know, getting heroin. I'm going, you're the cable guy.
Yeah.
You won the bell ringing competition last year, you know, because they had a bell ringing thing. And so I'd be in there, and she would wait in the lobby. But so I had no idea that this was Richard Ramirez. I never knew his last name, but he was the Night Stalker. He was,
and so the Night Stalker, which there's plenty of.
It was all over the news in L.A. He was primarily in L.A., but he came up to San Francisco for 3 months in 1985, and that's the 3 months he lived at this Bristol hotel, and that's when I got to know him. So one night, I'm at home in our apartment out in the avenues in San Francisco. I'm making spaghetti, I remember. And my girlfriend, she's watching the 6 o'clock news, and all of a sudden on the news it said, Richard Ramirez captured in L.A. And she comes running in the kitchen. She goes, Richie's on the news. I'm going, what? I go in there and look. And it's like it showed he's running down some street in East L.A. and all these citizens are chasing him. And they actually jumped on him because it was all over the news. You know, his face, they got his fingerprints finally. They could never get his fingerprints because I guess he wore gloves. And the shoe he was wearing, they found it from the shoe print. And they actually got his name. So now they had his name. And he was in El Paso, apparently, where he was from. And now he's back in L.A., and he got off the bus at the bus station. And I saw a documentary about it, and he saw his picture on the L.A. Times. And he's like, holy shit, people are going to recognize me. He was trying to get home so he could hide out, apparently, but he never made it to his house. Citizens saw him. And so I go out there, and I'm going, oh, man, he must have got caught buying dope or something, and I was actually, rooting for him to get away. I'm going like, run, Richie, run, holy shit, they're going to catch you. And then it flashes up on the screen, the graphic, Night Stalker captured in L.A. And me and my girlfriend, Night Stalker, holy shit, we've been getting high with the Night Stalker for the past few months, my God. And she's like he didn't kill us,
Right.
And jokingly, I said, well, we only saw him in the daytime. He was a Night Stalker. We saw him every morning.
That's wild.
And it was wild. I couldn't believe it.
Didn't you describe him as he had like rotten teeth?
Oh, yeah, he stunk. He smelled really bad. And he had black teeth, and his eyes, he had like shark eyes. It was like he had
like
dead,
he looked
dead
evil?
eyes. Yeah, he looked evil. And the vibe was evil, I could feel it. This guy was not anybody I wanted to be friends with, Because I would make friends with the other junkies. A lot of them, they were good people. They were just junkies.
Life is wild, man. Just to think about, like, in what day is it? Sunday? Jesus, times get messed up. In 4 days, I've sat down with somebody who's caught a serial killer and then somebody who's done drugs with a serial killer. So life is wild.
That's the Green River killer he's talking about.
Yeah, you got to check out our episode with Dave Reichert. It's a great, like, incredible human, humble giant. I call him from now on.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna let Wayne come and sit with you for a minute, but just before I let you go, Ben, I gotta say I really appreciate you. I appreciate this friendship that we've made.
Oh yeah.
I can't. Describe it yet because we're still rolling with it. Yeah, and I love it, and I love that about your character, and I really appreciate you coming on to tell your story, and we'll do this more than once. I think I can tell that you and I will remain friends.
I will be back. I can sense it. I will be back.
Yeah, and we'll come see you too.
For whatever reason, I'll be back. Hopefully, it'll be to do stand up.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get that rolling. So I'm gonna hand it over here to Wayne and let him sit with you, and you guys can talk about your tattoo and whatever else.
My first and only client to date. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever even do another tattoo. I mean, how do you get an opportunity like that? That a tattoo artist actually brings you in his studio.
Right.
And he says, okay, here's my stuff. This is what you do. He taught me right then and there. I practiced on a grapefruit for about a half hour before all that.
You did a great job, too. I wasn't sure what to expect when I sat down, but you...
So when you look at it in the mirror, you're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if... because like I was telling David... I just kind of thought, oh, that would be crazy if we could get Ben to give me a tattoo. And that's something that normally I wouldn't just do.
Yeah, I was surprised that you even wanted me to do it.
Well, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. Yeah. And I wasn't sure what to expect because I didn't know you. Right. I wasn't sure if you could, like, I didn't even know you did art before I asked for it.
Yeah.
And so when you sat down. Well, I saw you working on the orange.
Yeah.
I remember you were doodling on the orange, and that's when I started to be a little bit more comfortable. I realized I was like, oh, hey, that guy knows what he's doing. But secretly, I was hoping that it would turn out like horrible and it would be a funny thing. But
oh, really?
Yeah, but I should have known better because.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with it. So for me to be happy, because I'm critical of my own stuff usually, you know.
I think we all surprised. I think you surprised everybody with how good it was. If you wanted to, I'm sure you could get into it if you just.
Yeah, I would like to put flame colored in the, you know, like made flames, orange and.
Oh, I guess we should probably show it to the camera so they know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Can you see that, David? In the camera?
Yeah, pull your shirt back. Yep. Oh, yeah.
That's pretty good, huh?
Oh yeah.
I think it's
an original piece.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a Ben Grelle original.
Yeah, it's from a charcoal pastel I did, and it's called Screaming Face. And
I like that.
It's basically a head going through space like a comet, and it's like screaming like ah.
Yeah, I'll try to put a picture up when I edit this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where that little picture that Alex had. I don't know what happened to it.
I think he was going to keep it in his studio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got to find the actual pastel. I think it's in one of my portfolios in Austin.
I was wondering while we got you two, how's your guys' experience been through the process of meeting Wayne? And
yeah, you didn't know about me before last week.
Yeah, but I tell you, all you guys, Alex, Wayne, you, I feel like I've known you forever, which is a good feeling.
We appreciate that.
It doesn't happen with everybody. Some people I just don't like. I'll meet someone and say, I don't like this guy, you know. Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is or what happens, but as soon as I met all of you guys, it was just like a great feeling.
Yeah, that's mutual.
What did you expect when you came out here? Were you expecting to...
I wasn't expecting any of this. Oh, yeah. I mean, he mentioned going shooting. Yeah, he mentioned shooting, and I told my wife about it. That's when she's like, who are these guys? What do you mean? You're going shooting in the woods up in Washington? What if they kill you? You know, I said, you're watching too many serial killer stories. Yeah. I love watching that stuff on the internet, you know, murder stuff and all that. Yeah. But and you're a sweet kid. You're 26 years old, so to me, you're a kid, you know. Yeah. You're my nephew's age. They're like 25, 26 years old. Yeah. And the fact that you were brave enough to let me do that to you, and you were saying, you said, however it turns out is fine, you know? So you really took the pressure off me. Like, I would say, okay, well, he's cool, whatever happens. So it gave me confidence, you know? I wasn't worried about, I don't want to screw this guy's body up. Jesus, every time he looks at it. No. Like I told you, my friend got a heart tattooed on his arm in jail. Oh, yeah? And it turned out to look like an acorn. So much so that they just put a stem on it and made it an acorn.
To me, the tattoo I wasn't nervous to get the tattoo at all. I mean, just because I didn't care what it looked like, because it was more about who was giving it to me in the story. I could tell after.
Yeah, well, then you said that to me, and that really made me feel. You said, well, just the fact that it's you. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, who am I, you know? Jesus. But apparently to you, I'm somebody, you know?
Oh, you'd be surprised. A lot of people know who you are.
Yeah, I still can't grasp that whole thing, because people come up to me on the street and go, oh my God, can I get a selfie with you? You're the guy on KillTony. And I'm like, fuck yeah. Come on, I love it, you know.
You like being famous then?
Oh, I love it. Are you kidding? I've been trying to do this my whole life. Seriously, since I was young. I was a drummer in a band, and I thought I could be a professional musician. But once I started shooting dope, all that went out the window. You know, it just kind of fucked everything up.
Yeah, but I mean, are you pretty well received when you're walking around? People recognize.
Oh yeah. Everybody's going, I can't believe you're clean after all these years, and ex-drug addicts, and a lot of AA and NA people are getting in touch with me. Some lady asked me how much I charge to corporate events. I'm like, well, I don't know. I have no idea. But they pay really good apparently. Yeah. So I got to talk to Holtzman about that. He's my financial advisor.
Might want to look into
that. He doesn't know
it
though, but
well, what you got any questions for your own personal life that you'd want to ask Ben?
Yeah, so I guess because to you I'm a kid, right? If you were my age, if you could think back to when you were my age, what's one thing that maybe you start to encounter once you get closer to 30 that maybe people my age should be aware of, and something that we should start doing, or some advice you have for us?
what's interesting to me is none of you guys do drugs. Nobody smokes pot. Yesterday there were 10 people here, and nobody, not one of you smoked weird pot, which is really interesting to me. Because in Austin, everybody smokes pot. It's supposedly illegal, weed in Texas. But Austin, they say there's a loophole. I swear to God, there's more pot shops in Austin than there are Starbucks in LA. That's what I say. They even have vending machines that you can buy pot in.
Yeah.
And they have food trucks. Like it looks like a food truck, but it's a weed truck. I've never seen that. It's crazy. But yeah, the fact that you guys don't do drugs, and that's what my message would be. You know, don't fuck around with drugs, because once you get in, you can't get out.
Right.
Because you might like it. But I think you're on a good trajectory. What you're doing, and obviously you're smart, and I can tell you really like doing what you're doing. You're like obsessed with it, which is what you got to be. You got to be obsessed, I think, to succeed. Same thing with you. I mean, it's what you do. It's your essence, both of you guys. And same thing with Alex and his tattooing. But yeah, the way just everybody was so cool to me and like reaching out, it's blowing my mind. Seriously.
Yeah, I think that goes back to like the support of a community, just really what it is. And
yeah,
you
I
definitely
feel
have
like
to have a good community around you in life, for sure.
It's amazing, seriously.
So once you got clean, did you start getting those kind of people around you, those quality people? Did they help?
Yeah, well, I stopped hanging around junkies.
I guess that's step one.
You can't run with the same people. You can't get clean and still have the same friends. You have to basically start a new life. Actually, my first name is Kenneth, and Kenneth is a junkie.
Right.
And I was Kenneth until I got clean. Once I got clean, I got an agent in San Francisco. Yeah, it was some gay guy. I'm sitting across the desk from him, and he signed me. And he's like, Kenneth. He goes, you're Italian kid. What kind of name is Kenneth? He said, what's your middle name? I said, Benjamin. My dad's name is Benedetto. He goes, oh, man, you got to go with Benjamin, And next thing I knew, he opened his drawer, took out a tweezer, and he came around behind me. He said, put your head back, because I have a unibrow. And the guy tweezed my eyebrows right then and there. The first day I met him, he's plucking my eye. I go, what are you doing? He goes, we got to get rid of this unibrow, because it's really bothering me. Yeah. And so it looked so much better once he did it, Yeah. And then I guess after so many years of doing it just stopped growing. Yeah. So I haven't done that for, forever. But yeah, so Benjamin became the clean me.
I see.
And Ken, if I meet old friends on, hey, Ken, it's like, yeah, Ken's dead, I killed him.
I like that.
So,
yeah.
So your advice to the young people is don't do drugs, right? But
yeah.
But I guess.
And follow your dream. If you have something you're passionate about, you need to be passionate, I think, to be successful, whatever it is. Like stand-up. I've been wanting to do stand-up since I was a kid, and I used to watch Johnny Carson. Yeah. He would come out and do stand-up for the first 10 minutes of his show.
And that's actually what I was leading into is we're not in the industry, but to the young comics coming up, I don't know much about starting out in the comic world.
Yeah.
But I've heard it can be a little bit rough to them. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, don't do drugs. That's because a lot of them do, like John Belushi, Chris Farley, Mitch Hedberg, they all died. They all overdosed on drugs. And those guys were really good. Belushi, I loved Mitch Hedberg,
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, so drugs will fuck you up.
Yeah.
Whether it's coke, but then again, alcohol too,
Right.
I never got into alcohol, but that's even, I think, worse than heroin because it's so socially acceptable. First things when you go to someone's house, hey, what are you drinking?
Yeah.
That would be like going to someone's house and hey, what do you want, China White or Mexican tar? What kind of heroin do you want,
Right.
That would have been heaven when I was a junkie. Like, oh, great.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah, you don't smoke pot.
I'm too busy.
Yeah, I got too much to do.
I don't have time. But
Yeah.
I guess we're probably running out of time.
That's why you guys are hooked up.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he was smoking weed all day?
Yeah,
you get frustrated. Or he was smoking weed all day.
Yeah, it's true.
Plus, when you smoke weed, you get high and you get spaced out.
Right.
It's hard to focus. I guess you could think like, oh, it makes you more creative when you're painting or whatever, but it doesn't. Once you get clean, it's even more focused on what you're doing.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, before we finish up here, Ben, once again, just thanks, man. We've really enjoyed our time with you.
Great time. And same thing for me, man. You guys are really fucking great.
We got to get down to Austin and see.
We'll keep in touch, and there'll be more to come of us.
Yeah. You can't get rid of me now, man. You're stuck with me.
That's all right. I like that.
That's not a bad problem to have.
All of us. You too.
I hope so.
Yeah. You got my number. You got my number.
Yeah. We'll keep it.
And we got to talk, even after I'm gone, every week. Let's stay in touch.
We do. We stay in touch with the people we interview, and
that's good.
We went and saw some in hospitals, call them on their birthday.
That guy there.
Yep. So
the guy was sitting in the chair. He's kind of low.
Yeah. He's crippled his whole life.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll have to watch it. I encourage people to watch Richard McBride's episode.
Did he use the lift?
No. I went to his house.
Oh.
Yeah. We've had one guy use the lift. He was 98, World War II vet. He almost blind, all the way blind now, and pretty hard getting around.
How dedicated you are to this whole thing. David actually has one of those chairs that comes down on a rail to get people down in the studio here. I thought you had an uncle or something, some old guy that comes and visits, and no. Yesterday you actually used it a little bit.
Yeah, just to show you around. Well, if you break a leg tonight on the show, we'll use it on the way down.
Yeah, hopefully I do break a leg. That's what they say, break a leg.
Before we close out, Ben, where can people find you on social media?
Well, on Instagram, it's Benjamini Linguini. Yeah,
I'll type it out.
Yeah, this waitress gave me. She said, Facebook's for old people. Give me your phone. I'm going to put you on Instagram. I gave her my phone. 10 minutes later, she goes, here it is. She goes, I put you on Benjamini Linguini, because that's what they used to call me. Right?
Yeah, we'll put links for social media and all the in the episode.
I'll put it right up.
Good, because I don't know. I know how to get on Facebook and all that. I'm not even sure how to post things on Instagram. You got to show me.
I'll show you.
We got you.
We'll get you figured out.
And you got to show me how to work those cameras.
And
also,
watch.
ironically, you got to show me how to set this freaking watch.
Yeah. I got quite the to-do list. We better get going on that. But thank you so much, Ben.
Yep, thanks,
all right.
Ben.
I love you guys.
Man. Yeah,
okay?
that's mutual.
It's great to have you.
This is great.